Hi everyone. As I continue to tidy up around the house, I am rummaging through and going through some of my deck collection, which are within reach, which are not in boxes. And so I came across this. This is the Ellis deck created by Taylor Ellis in Texas, I believe. I love this deck so much. I came across this when I first started my tarot journey in 2014, and this copyright is 2013. It is the second edition, and so by then it's probably been around for a few months or a year or so. So it wasn't new, but it was relatively recent, and I managed to snag a deck, the second edition. I looked through YouTube and there's about 4 other videos related to this particular deck, 3 of which are of the latest edition, which is the third edition. Yes, that's right. And so when I found out that when the third edition came out and I found that the back has been changed to one that is reversible, I quickly contacted Taylor Ellis and asked whether he still have any of the second edition lying around. And I think he sold out, but there's a couple which was left unsold because of the slight bowing of the cardstock. And so, most people do not like that, but I don't care because for me, I it's important for me to have that back. For me personally, because I do not read reversal, and although I then subsequently bought the third edition with the reversible back, because he made the third edition in plastic. And I don't believe the second edition is available in plastic. So I bought the plastic edition of the third edition, and I have a couple of copies of the second edition, which is the previous edition with the world as the cover of the box there. And so getting a curved one is not a big deal to me, and because of that, it's considered faulty, I suppose, and so I purchased it at some discount, which is fair enough. And it's still relatively higher than the average U.S. Games, Amazon type of decks, but this is a self-published one, and we all know that the running costs for a self-published decks are higher because of the capacity, the volume capacity of self-published producers. And so the images are the same. You would have seen this in the other videos, flipping through, walking through, and reviewing this deck. But I love this deck so much. The cardstock is matte, but also has that texture which is similar to the Masa September's Silhouette Tarot. It's matte and it has that orange skin or orange peel texturing on it. And Taylor's plastic edition actually feels and look the same. It is matte and also has that sort of orange skin or orange peel texture on the surface that when you touch it, you can't actually tell the difference between the plastic and this cardboard one, other than the plastic one maybe feels a tad thicker. When once I get through my other boxes and things and can reach into my plastic deck, I'll do another video just showing you what the plastic looked like. When I ordered the plastic deck, I was a little uncertain what I was going to get, but I trust his judgment because I trust his aesthetic. That's the thing. When you have good faith, when you have faith in a person's artistry and sense of aesthetic, you just know they're not going to combine an artwork like this with some tacky plastic looking, or what the kind of visual that we often associate with. Ooh, there's a little scratch there. Never mind. Yeah, so I trust that he was going to, the plastic that he was going to choose are going to be of, it's going to work basically. And so when I received it, I was pleasantly surprised, and I just noticed all these scratches. Yeah, and so I highly recommend checking out the plastic edition. It is not about wanting to take a bath with your deck, for me, even though of course as plastic they become quite water resistant or waterproof. But for me, it's just card durability, like chippings on the side, scratching on the surface, and that sort of thing become, or bend creases become less likely if you use your deck heavily. And so I have another deck which I've trimmed, and it trims beautifully. I trimmed it completely, and if you are trimming this, just notice that the banners aren't the same width. So, but don't be fooled, because ultimately it doesn't matter. Like, look at that. It doesn't matter if the banner is not the same width, because that's part of the style of the deck. But the color or the artwork edges are the same width. So it's irrelevant whether the banner is up here or up there or down here or this thick or that thin. The distance between, do you know what I mean? Yeah, so the artwork, the width of the artwork from edge to edge are all uniform, so it doesn't really matter. And it aligned quite well with the back. So again, once I get a hold of my other collection, I'll show you the plastic edition and my trimmed one as well. But I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who's already trimmed theirs and can show you how it looks trimmed. There's recently a conversation about people who are, who are anti-borders or who hate borders. I personally don't hate borders. I'm not anti it. It's an aesthetic choice. You see, like that one, speaking of banners, I just want to show you that again. So the banners are not all aligned, but it's irrelevant in terms of trimming, because the artwork, the dimension of the artwork itself is the same. So it doesn't matter that the banner is up there. You don't cut under the banner, you cut under the artwork, which isn't, what was I going to say? Oh, the borders. It's just an aesthetic choice, really. Without the borders, the image becomes center stage. But as I've mentioned in another video, without the white borders, chippings around the edges with wear and tear as you shovel, depending on how you shuffle, depending on how often you shuffle, becomes more visible as well. Or the whites, the chipping are usually white because it reveals the core or the layer underneath the surfaces that's printed, and so they tend to be white. The core of the cardstock tends to be white, so you have this white little chipping around. And when you have a borderless deck, the chipping becomes more visible. I do not believe that trim deck are more vulnerable to chipping. In some instances they are. I think in some instances, depending on how the card is laminated, when you cut the borders, it does expose the edges. It becomes the edges becomes less sealed, and so they become more vulnerable to chipping. And so therefore my ideal would be a trimmed plastic deck. And so my next mission is to trim my plastic deck. A lot of people have trimmed them in the usual way, and apparently it worked. But my trimmer is one of those viscous sliding blade with tiny blade, which is struggling even when trimming cardboard decks. After one deck, it's struggling. In the next deck, it tends to struggle. So I'm still trying to find a way as to how to trim the plastic deck, because that would be the ultimate ideal. That particular plastic stock that he picked is very much like this, very much matte, and has that orange peel texture, so that it feels very much like a cardboard, but it's more durable. And so a durable trimmed deck would be amazing. And so that's my next mission, and once I've done that, I will definitely show you. Or if you've already done that with yours, I would love to see how that turned out and how that has been working, really. But yeah, for those who do not read reversals, this bag is good. I don't know whether this is out of print necessarily, and I did say that I prefer not to talk about out of print decks, but technically this deck isn't out of print, although technically this particular version is. I'm actually hoping that I could, I don't know, start a conversation, or I'm actually hoping that Taylor Ellis might be able to offer different backs. Like, a lot of card producers can offer a variety of choices for the backs. I'm actually hoping that one day with his 4th edition, if he is going to go for a 4th one, that he might be able to give us a choice in terms of which back we prefer, because I much prefer this non-reversible back. I also found the art a bit more richer overall anyway. I quite like the quirkiness of the 3rd edition backs, and I really like the plastic edition of the 3rd edition. But yeah, so maybe one day when there's a 4th edition, we can have a choice of 2 different backs, maybe reversible and non-reversible. So there's an idea. Yeah, that's it really. I love this deck. It's so cute, and it's just refreshing. It's just fresh. It's just fresh. Bye.